All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us on a Thursday afternoon here in Chicago. I'm Scott, and I'm joined with Gabriela. I'm going to kick us off just quickly, but it's never been more exciting to be part of the Sentinel community. I've had the pleasure of actually being there since the beginning. I guess we named the product, launched the product, what seems like a really long time ago. This is a partner-centered session. And so actually, I'm going to hand it off to Gabriela right now, and she's going to talk to you about what you can do from a partner perspective working with Sentinel. And then I'm going to come back in the back half of the talk and talk more about the technology associated with Sentinel. So Gabriela, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. So super excited about being here with our amazing partner ecosystem. We want to share some things around what are the updates for our modern security operations priority? And really, for my portion of the conversation, I would like you to walk away with really 3 things. First of all, what's the partner opportunity around working on a Microsoft Sentinel practice? Second, what are the enablement resources that you can leverage if you want to go deeper, really develop that practice those managed services, just developing all that? How do you differentiate yourself with customers? And then, last but not least, really, what's our GTM strategy? What's the key resources that you can leverage to go deeper, to accelerate those deals? Hero investments. So let's get started. We wouldn't be in a modern security operations center conversation if we wouldn't talk about our hero solution, which is Microsoft Sentinel, a leading cloud-native security, information, and event management platform that's being continuously recognized as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Its value really spans all across the customer lifecycle. We have different features on UBA, automated response with an integrated native SOAR platform. And with that being said, we have seen a soaring need for customers to go into this space. And with the leadership that we have been seeing in the space, we started to engage with Canalys. Canalys is a leading global analyst firm focusing on the channel space. And we really needed to understand better, to go deeper into what was that partner opportunity. What were all the revenue or additional revenue streams that you can uncover if you were focusing in a Microsoft Sentinel practice? From a diversity perspective on the spectrum of the study that we did with Canalys, we tried to engage with partners that have diverse business models, from consultancy firms to service providers, system integrators, some other advisory service. But also from a geodiversity perspective, we had to make sure that we had sufficient representation. So 45% of the participants were based in the Americas, so US, Latin America, Canada, 25% in Australia and New Zealand, 20% in Europe, and 10% in Asia. And through the study, we were able to uncover 3 key findings. First, I would say, and foremost, the most important thing that we're going to talk about here is the incremental revenue opportunities partners are capturing when engaging with Microsoft Sentinel. Second, how these revenue opportunities behave through a 3-year customer journey. And lastly, what are the specific activities that you can be investing on to capture that opportunity? So just let's go into the study itself. For the incremental earning opportunity, the value is expressed as a multiplier. This means that, out of the findings of the study, for every $1 that a customer is consuming with Microsoft Sentinel, partners are able to earn up to $5.22 US in additional partner and product services. So with this in mind, I need to make some caveats, some disclosures. The most mature partners were the ones that were able to capture that opportunity in full. So these are mainly partners that not only have very deep, solid practices and service offerings, but also a broad range of them. So again, if you are thinking about going into this, you would need to invest a little bit more in advisory, design, procuring, adoption, managing services. And really another finding, while it was not surprising, is that only 31% of kind of the sample of the partners were considered expert partners in this stage. There's still room to grow, and that's why, a little bit later in the presentation, I will be going over the enablement resources for you to be able to leverage and go deeper into this space. Partners that were not achieving the opportunity in full were either because they were not investing in the full broad of services by choice. I mean, they were telling us, this is not my business model, I'm not going to go into that specific space, or because they didn't have sufficient maturity in specific services. So this not only speaks about the strength of Microsoft Sentinel as a platform, but also about the depth and breadth of services that customers are needed to really accelerate on this front. Now, doing a double click on the level of maturity of the interviewees, we were able to find 3 main categories. It spanned all across from very, very targeted and focused practices, so really organizations that were mainly focusing on the migration and not really attaching any other services, to very, very mature organizations that had solid depth practices, and especially around managed services. So I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, but for the partners that were labeled as focused, as you can see in the graph, those partners were solely focusing on migrations, maybe just a few additional services. Those partners were able to capture 93 cents for every dollar spent on Microsoft Sentinel through a customer journey of 3 years. So again, there's opportunity there, but if you only focus on the migration, you will not have that span. Then for organizations that were labeled as progressive, there were still a lot of focus on the migrations, but their practices were a little bit more broad, so they could offer more services to the customers. And these partners were able to capture $2.31 for every dollar spent in Sentinel. And then, as mentioned, the partners that were labeled as experts were the ones that were able to capture just the full range of opportunities throughout the full life cycle. Another very important finding is that even when 45% of the earnings could be captured or just capitalized in year 1, focusing on the migration, I would just put it the other way around. 55%, so the majority of the earning opportunity, was when partners were focusing on the long term, being able to attach additional services on year 2 and year 3 on that customer journey. And now reviewing the types of services that make up the full earning potential, we can see that, no surprise, for managed services, it's really the majority of it. And then we had 2 other activities around adoption and design. When we're talking about design activities, we're talking about things that include architecture design, the migration itself, testing, and the infrastructure setup from going to either legacy on-prem solutions to a cloud-native SIEM like Sentinel, or things that were really associated to process management and effective integrations. And again, as most of you may know, I'd say most likely many of you will already have managed services practices. It's very, very critical for us to focus on those managed services for us to be able not only to capture that earning opportunity, but to drive that stickiness to the platform and to your own offerings. So again, summarizing the findings, apologize for the repetition, just for it to stick. So a partner focusing on Sentinel, you can achieve $5.22 for every Sentinel dollar consumed on a 3-year span if you have a depth and breadth of services. 55% of the earning opportunity will happen when you focus on the long term, not only on the migration, on year 2 and year 3. And currently, only 31% of our partners are considered experts. So room to grow. We will cover enablement resources in just a second. Now, as Microsoft, we really rely on all of you to help us support our partners. I'm simplifying a little bit the range of services that you could be offering in professional services, managed services, and incident response services. And these are just examples of the things that you could be doing. But for example, for professional services, customers are really looking for you to help us set them up for success, like in planning, implementation, assessments for regulatory and compliance requirements. On the managed services side, we have seen primarily two approaches. For smaller customers, they really need pretty much everything. Do it for me. And maybe for larger enterprise that have a very, very large staff for security operations center, maybe we need to do a lighter touch, and it's more helping them out with some of these things. And of course, very, very relevant, supporting customers through a crisis. So incident response services, helping these customers recover when they go through an incident. Now, enablement resources. So as Microsoft, we're committing to helping you upskill, really have those capabilities throughout the customer journey, from helping them understand what is the need, all the way to building the solution. And for you to be able to enhance those capabilities, we have all the programs all the way from certification and training to actually hands-on deployment training. So from the left-hand side, it always starts with certification. Having a Microsoft certification is really the foundation for you to get things like designation. When we talk about Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program, who knows what is MAI Cloud Partner Program? OK, most of the room. Sorry, is that I just had a conversation that I just needed to be sure. So when we talk about this, again, certification is the foundation. We really need you to get individuals certified in your organization so you can get into that security designation. And for that, we offer instructor-led, Microsoft-funded certification weeks to expedite that learning journey towards the security certifications. Then, of course, we go into the pre-sales and sales stage. And to enable you to accelerate your leads, we have both technical pre-sales training, as well as commercial pre-sales training, and also sales skilling. In this pillar, it's really important because we are helping you understand what is the solution, how to position it, how to message it, and how to handle objections. And last but not least, we really are focused on improving your time to deployment. So hands-on training, very, very specific towards the specific need, but also for your SOC teams to feel very comfortable migrating customers from third-party on-premise solutions, side-to-side conversations just going directly into full Sentinel mode, and also competitive solutions. So it's really about having that hands-on skilling to accelerate that time to deployment and migration. Now, let's talk about co-selling. When we speak about going to market with Microsoft, we need to talk about something called the Microsoft Customer Engagement Methodology, or MSEM for short, but I'm going to try to do the full name for the purposes of this presentation. It is really designed for sellers to be able to accelerate that deal and move the deal along onto closure and customer outcomes. But it's also designed to help our partners collaborate with all the people at Microsoft that are driving those opportunities forward, and to keep us, me as a partner representative, you as partners, in lockstep, aligned to the orchestration with our sellers. So first, the goal, specifically for the modern security operations priority, is that we need your help driving those migrations forward. Strategic migrations, additional Sentinel additional Sentinel deals, deployments, to accelerate that adoption and consumption while positioning you as trusted advisors for our customers, really driving that, again, that stickiness to your offers and for your services. This methodology contains 5 core steps, as you can see in the slide. So listen and consult, inspire and design, empower and achieve, realize value, and manage and optimize. The intent is to have, from a partner perspective, strategic investments that help you move that project along to each of the stages. So if we look at the listen and consult stage, we're really trying to drive ready-to-launch marketing campaigns that we'll go into detail in just a second, for you to be able to drive top-of-funnel leads. When we move to inspire and design, it's just about having a pre-established engagement that you can utilize to drive even further demand. And then it's all about the migrations with our hero investments that's called Sentinel, Migrate, and Modernize. Let's talk a little bit about Campaign in the Box. We'll cover some of these things with more detail. So Campaign in the Box is content that we put together as free-to-launch, customizable campaigns. So really the goal here is to help all of the ecosystem to drive top-of-funnel leads with comprehensive end-to-end campaign that contains Microsoft-approved proposition, messaging, framing, branding. I would say some interesting things about Campaign in the Box is, first of all, it's available in 11 languages. So if you're supporting customers in specific markets, you don't need to worry about just localizing that content. It is designed, as mentioned, just to help you grow your pipeline, generating demand by first building awareness, then acquiring leads, and last but not least, nurturing those opportunities with standardized assets. So again, you don't need to worry about building anything. It's already built. It's already organized. You can know, what's the content that you need to leverage even for each week of the campaign that you launch. And we have it available for our main priorities, in this case, for Modernize security operations. So there are 2 options or 2 flavors of Campaign in a Box. The first one is what we call digital marketing. The assets are exactly the same. You will get the same kit, the same assets, the same resources. So for digital marketing, it's really about a fully automated campaign that it's running on Microsoft engines, not on your own marketing engines. And it's customization is possible, but it's very, very basic. The second one is through Partner Marketing Center. Again, same assets, same content, same messaging. The main difference is that with the second flavor, with the Partner Marketing Center, you're actually able to run it with your own engines, and you can have further customization on it. And then on the flow, this is just an example of some of the thumbnails of the assets and the flow that you can get all the way from promotion to acquisition, consideration, and finally, customer decision. So if you haven't leveraged those, just if you can help me with the raise of hands, if someone is already aware of them, awareness, very few hands. So I feel that someone is actually using Campaign in the Box and leveraging them. Okay, even fewer hands. Okay, so Campaign in the Box, just look at them, digital marketing or through Partner Marketing Center. So included in the pre-built campaign materials, we also provide all of our partner ecosystem, again, for the main priorities, partner messaging framework for, in this case, Modernize security operations, but it is also available for other main priorities, data security and threat protection. The messaging framework really provides that clarity and consistency for developing messaging and campaigns. And you can use this information, all the information in the document, as you can see here, marketing content, and aligning the scenario, value pillars, to have pretty much any conversation that's needed, from analyst meetings, public relationships, web, social, customer, stakeholder conversations. It's a super valuable asset. For modern security operations, we already have the campaign running, but there have been some updates. So the updated content will be available very soon, just a few weeks back. So just expect that to be updated just with the latest things. Now let's go into the investment. So a little bit more exciting stuff, maybe. Our hero investment for the Modernize security operations priority is very straightforward name, Sentinel, migration, and modernization. It is designed really to simplify and accelerate the customer migration to Sentinel, to a modern, unified security operations platform. The engagement goal is, again, super straightforward, driving that migration specifically from on-prem solutions, legacy solutions, competitive solutions, to Microsoft Sentinel. If there's a customer that has starting deploying Sentinel but has very little adoption, it could also be a target customer for Sentinel Migrate and Modernize. So partners are paid, and we'll go into payouts in just a second, based on the consumption of the project. So Sentinel run rate consumption for year 1. So it is very important also that you're super aligned with our sales teams to understand, how the project is moving, how much consumption you can expect on year 1, because that consumption usually ramps. Again, money slide, literally, and you can just review this in the Microsoft Commerce Investment Guide. The project sizes are the planned Sentinel consumption in year 1, measured from the project completion date. So you nominate the customer, you complete the project. From that date, we start measuring consumption, and then the payout is based on the consumption for the year 1. So let's just take an example. Let's use Market B. As most of you may be aware, on MCI, we have different payouts depending on the type of market, how we classify the markets. So let's just take Market B as an example. For the medium engagement, the project size needs to be between $125K and $250K yearly. When you complete that project and we start seeing that consumption coming in, then you'll be getting a $28,000 payout. For the large engagement, you can get up to $40,000. This was updated this year. Last year, some of you may be aware of it. We had a lesser threshold, but I just wanted to make you aware that this shifted for FY25, and these are the new thresholds for Sentinel, Migrate, and Modernize. Now, for opportunities where you are engaging with local Microsoft account teams, we also have additional investment that's called the End Customer Investment Funds. This is not a partner-led thing. This is not a partner-led investment that you can run directly from Partner Center. This is something that needs to be aligned with our Microsoft account teams. But I just wanted you to have awareness that there could potentially be additional funding for very strategic opportunities to showcase the value of the solution for specific workloads, to drive POCs, services, migration, and also post-sales usage and consumption. Now, one very frequent question that we get from a lot of partners is, how do I get recognized for my capabilities? How do I qualify for specific incentives or specific investments? So either if you are a newer partner to Microsoft, or you are already a Microsoft partner but starting your journey in security, the answer is Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program. It is really the only partner program. We provide technology and resources to drive customer success. So through MAI CPP, we're really allowing you to differentiate yourselves. It's really the objective criteria that we have, and we can showcase to both our field sellers and customers to say this is a great partner to work with. We have 2 milestones in MAI CPP. The first one is Security Partner Designation. This is really about recognizing the breadth of your capabilities and success delivered in Microsoft security solutions. So we don't have a designation by priority. It's just a broad security designation. But the second milestone that really recognizes your capability in a specific priority or in a specific workload is specialization. Going back to designation, we heard a lot of feedback from all of you from our ecosystem stating that there's a ton of opportunity in our smaller business segment. So for SMB customers, and we didn't have that SMB path for designation. A lot of you were focusing on that SMB segment, and there was not necessarily a clean pathway to you to get to designation. So the very good news is that we will be launching sometime next calendar year our SMB path for security, which will allow you just to differentiate yourselves as a partner that's focusing on security, but specifically for SMB. And again, just our second milestone is a specialization. For the modern security operations priority, we have aligned that to our threat protection specialization. We don't have one particularly for Sentinel or Modern SecOps. It's the threat protection one. And it's really about empowering you to differentiate yourselves and just demonstrate the value all across Microsoft XDR and SIEM with these specific workloads plus your MDR or MXDR services. So with this, as I was saying in the start, I wanted to cover 3 things. Hopefully you remember which are those. Partner opportunity, then enablement resources and how you differentiate yourselves with 𝗦𝗽𝗍𝗶𝗶. And last but not least, it's all really about those GTM investments, how you leverage those, and how you qualify for them. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. We'll be around, of course, and then I will hand it over to Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabriela. Yeah, and certainly in my travels, I've been to many places across Europe and Asia and in the States over the last 6 to 9 months, and it's exciting to have conversations with partners who are both helping customers and building their practices substantially with great profitability as this market, frankly, is a little bit in flux, and so there's real opportunities out there with vendors such as Splunk and customers being concerned about the level of innovation that may or may not be coming there for a SIEM that is not cloud native, needs to be cloud native. And of course, the interesting move for Palo to buy 𝗬𝗓𝗂𝗬's customer base, which doesn't appear to be working super well. So we're seeing lots of partners out there taking advantage of that to help migrate customers, and Sentinel is a leading choice for both of those for sure. In terms of the technology front, as a partner, as you're supporting your customers with Sentinel, there's really 3 different pivots that we think about. Obviously, the first is really driving efficiency in the Sentinel operations. The second is managing security data and costs, because this is an important thing. Sentinel is a consumption service. Certainly, customers coming from legacy SIEMs may have not put as much data in those legacy SIEMs as they wanted to because they were on premises or they were constrained in some way. And often when they move to a cloud-native SIEM, they put everything in. So there's an opportunity for them to get more security value and put more data in. But there's also an opportunity to make sure you don't overblow budgets and you optimize the security value. So we'll talk some about that. And then, of course, improving the security outcomes for your customers. So let's dive into each of these 3 sections with some of the technology things we've either done in the last period of time or announced at the show. So one of the biggest initiatives that we are working on continuously is this notion of a unified security operations platform. This is not merged and acquisitioned pieces stuck on a marketing slide. This is, as you know, technically deep integrated platform across all the pieces. We announced this at last year's Ignite. It's already a year. It's kind of amazing how quickly it goes by. And of course, it includes Sentinel XDR, and as of earlier in this week, our exposure management capabilities, which weren't even on the slide last year from memory, are now generally available. So not just pre-breach, not just post-breach, but all of those combined with AI as well as threat intelligence. And as we move our Sentinel customers from the Azure portal, which was not the unified platform, into this new unified platform, it's a journey. We wished we could move everybody over on day one, but it's been a journey to do that. So we have 6,000 customers of our customer base currently using the unified security operations platform. And then earlier this week, Alex over there announced that we are enabling customers that are just using Sentinel. So they don't have any defenders, no XDR. Those customers just using Sentinel can now use the unified experience, which is great because the unified experience has all the benefits of XDR and Copilot and a bunch of things in it. So that's really exciting. There's some additional government cloud customers that you can see listed there that will have access to it. Not every customer still has access to it, and so you want to know when that will be. I'm sure multi-cloud, multi-tenant, which are often very big customers, is one of the key ones on this list, as well as additional government customers and multi-workspace single tenant. Both the top and the bottom may be very relevant to partners and how you manage Sentinel customers. We will have all of these out there in the February timeframe. With some private previews, obviously, before that. But we will have the install base not necessarily generally available for everything in the coming soon bucket, but in various degrees of previews by February 2025, and it remains our highest priority to make sure we move customers over. At this point, you can continue to run both the Azure portal and also the unified portal. At some point, we will discontinue the Azure portal, but we will do that in an appropriate way as time comes. So you'll see us prompt more and more if you're in a group that has access to move forward. Some of the cool things that you get in that unified experience are just better detections. All of the XDR detections just are there in Sentinel. And so there's this predefined base of knowledge that just exists because you're in the unified portal. That's one of the things. The second thing is we've actually taken the correlation engines across Sentinel and Defender, taken the best of both, combined them, and made the correlation engine 50% faster, which is pretty incredible, and then reduced the noise in the system by 86%. And that means there's less noise relative to signal. It means you find things faster. It means AI can find things faster. And then if you're using XDR data, there's no need to double ingest that XDR data if you just want to do a 30-day view on it. Sentinel can search over in place, federated search basically, across the XDR data and with no double ingestion required there. So that's a benefit specifically in the unified portal. If I go into managing data and costs, data is a huge topic. As a partner, it's really critical that you get a deep understanding of the data sources from the customer and which of those have security value and plan appropriately. And historically, it's been about log analytics, which is really, really important and is the primary store still for Sentinel moving further forward. But we also saw lots of customers and partners doing secondary solutions on things like ADX for very voluminous logs, such as NetFlow logs, VPC logs, that type of thing, that had security value, but not at the price point that analytics logs required, and nor did the level of interaction that analytics has need to be applied to those voluminous logs. And so we've come up with this notion of secondary data, or what we call auxiliary logs, to enable that. I think I have a second slide that I'll just go through here. And so the auxiliary logs is pretty exciting. Price point-wise is extremely affordable. It has a couple of modes of interacting with it. One is you can do the KQL queries, so the same type of queries that you can do in analytics logs with some restrictions, I believe. One of those biggest restrictions is you can only search back 30 days in auxiliary logs, so that's a cool one to know. The second thing that's really exciting about auxiliary logs is you want, in many cases, to get the data from auxiliary logs, but not all of it back into analytics logs or for detection rules or for portals. And one of the ways you can do that, in fact, the way that you can do that is, whoops, it's back there, is by the notion of what's called a summary rule. And so a summary rule takes pieces of data from auxiliary logs and effectively enables you to promote that piece of data out of auxiliary logs and use it in other places, so that there's a massive volume of data still in auxiliary logs, and just the important stuff you need in your dashboard or your detection rule is pulled through, which is a considerable cost saving. So as you're architecting Sentinel solutions for the future, definitely work that through. Auxiliary logs is in preview. We think we're going to GA it in spring at this point, just to give you a review on that. And there's a few more features. Data transformation, I think, is one of them in coming into auxiliary logs that we don't have yet, that we'll add before we get to GA. The next area I'd like to cover is, in fact, that data transformation. And this is another way of optimizing cost. We use storage as one way. How much you bring in is another way. And so lots of customers do a lot of pre-processing of data before that gets into Sentinel, so they remove the data that has limited security value. And to do that, there's a couple of options today. The first is through Logstash, of course. Logstash is an open source system, and the Logstash output plugin that we have for Sentinel really enables that pipeline transformation and advanced configuration so that you can pre-process data coming from Logstash or through Logstash before it gets into Sentinel and pick and choose what you want from a data perspective. A second option here, which is also fantastic, is a paid solution, which is 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 has, of course, a broad set of transformational capabilities that's fantastic at enabling pre-processing of data inside Sentinel. Which one you choose kind of depends on what level of complexity you need, I suppose. Where 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is a more out-of-the-box solution, obviously a paid solution. Logstash is more of an open source solution, but we'd recommend both of these solutions as you're considering optimizing costs for your customers from a data perspective. And then there's the piece of once you've got your data into the system, how do you ensure that you're optimizing all the time? Because as a partner, your job isn't just to get the customer up and running, it's to get the customer up and running happy and then to come back 6 or 9 months later to connect in another set of data sources that they didn't have and to build value. And one of the things you can really do to show value in Sentinel that we're really pleased we built are these SOC optimizations. And so it's a very typical pattern actually for customers who are ingesting data to over-ingest data, and then with your help, go ahead and optimize that data usage down and then find some more data sources and up they go. And so we see these sawtooth patterns in the customer's ingestion logic. And we want to enable that. That's a healthy behavior. If you're putting something in the log store and it doesn't have a detection rule on it, it's not doing anything. It has no value and you're paying for it. And so how do we fix that? Well, one of the things we did is with the SOC optimization where we provide you prompts saying, did you know you have a table and it has no detection rules on it? It may be that you determine that table has no security value, in which case, don't bring it in. It may be that you actually have, the purpose of that was to put a security value on it, but you haven't done that. And so you need to put detection rules on it. And in fact, we've seen since this feature was released a 30% increase in data utilization for threat detection or hunting as people are getting more security value out of what they've done. So it's absolutely working in that. And we've also seen an increase in the MITRE attack coverage across the broad fleet of users by about 17%. So go to this guidance, use this guidance in terms of, once again, saving costs and also driving value. And we are continuing to add additional guidance on this as we help guide you through the process in terms of the SOC. We recognize that Sentinel and many SIEMs is extremely flexible, but this provides a lot of opportunity to provide guidance on best practices in it, and we'll continue to do that. Because many of you in the room are MSSPs, obviously APIs are extremely helpful, so I just wanted to call attention that we have a SOC optimization API. You can build custom reports, many do, dashboards, workbooks, use Power BI. There's actually a Sentinel optimization workbook that's been based on this using the API. So whether you want to integrate with SOAR, ITSM, any of those types of things, do check out the API. It's a great way to get access to the SOC optimization capability for partners, or for customers for that matter, but mostly partners. So then if I move forward to whatever my next topic was, I just went right past that. Oh yeah, improving security outcomes. In terms of improving security outcomes, this is once again about detecting threats. And of course, if I step back, I'm sure you've heard before that we have over 10,000 experts actually located in 77 countries, tracking hundreds of threat actor groups. I should know that number off the top of my head, 350, somewhere around there, including many different nation states. And that threat intelligence is, of course, literally being updated by more than 78 trillion signals per day coming across all of Microsoft's diverse set of cloud properties and our billion endpoints that we're monitoring. So there's a lot of threat intelligence out there. Who cares? Well, obviously, the important piece is that Sentinel gets to use that information, those profiles, do all that real-time matching of log data, correlated information against all of the threat intelligence that we have. The way it does that is it takes the data that's been ingested in logs that use supported schemas, And we had some work to do to effectively schematize DNS logs and network sessions so that our threat intelligence could be used against that. We've done that work. And so now the threat intelligence, as you would expect, works across any data source, whether it be Ceph, syslog, Office activity logs, Azure logs, or once again, most recently, these two different network logs. So TI is now working on network logs as it should have for a while, I suppose, but we just got the job done. So with that, I'm going to close it out just quickly. That was a really fast look through. Obviously, there's Copilot. In fact, I have a minute, so I can talk about it. Obviously, Copilot is a significant tool in Sentinel. In fact, more than half of the Copilot usage is in the embedded experiences of Defender and Sentinel today, which is really exciting. I think we announced that pieces of Copilot were even going to come to the Azure portal for incident enrichment. Is that right, Alex? Yeah, so we will give a little bit of the Copilot stuff back to Azure customers as some of them can't move immediately to the new portal. But there's a real opportunity there with Copilot, and if you're a partner, consider one SCU of Copilot plus a Sentinel or Defender is a great way to work through with a customer in terms of providing value. One misconception that customers tend to have on Copilot, which I think we've moved past, but maybe your experience is they think it's about optimizing away people, and I've already got a partner, so why would I pay for a Copilot? It's really not about optimizing away people in the SOC. It's about making security experts more efficient. And so they do the things that they do faster so that you get better security. That's why you want Copilot, not so that you can have one less person on your team, because if you're a partner and you go down that angle, the customer says, well, why do I need to pay for the partner to have one less person on your team? But the other way around, which is actually what's happening, because nobody's really losing their job because of Copilot, that's silly, is that your SOC folks can be more efficient and get through more incidents faster and therefore have the customer be more protected. Anyway, in closing, here's a set of activities that you can do if you haven't already. One of them is, of course, to come here to Ignite, so I deeply appreciate your help in that. Certainly take advantage of all of the incentives and programs and collateral that are available that Gabriela talked to earlier. And with that, we have like 2 minutes for questions, and otherwise, thank you for your time. Cheers. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I heard you say that the Sentinel portal in Azure is going away. I've heard the exact opposite before. Did I hear you correct?
At some point, we will discontinue the Sentinel portal. We will do it in a customer-responsible way, just as we've discontinued the MDE portal, the MDA portal, you name it. We've discontinued 5 or 6 portals along the way to the Unified Security Operations Platform. But if you're here in 10 years' time, that portal will not be here.
It wasn't there 10 years ago either.
That's also true.
When do you expect to combine the Defender API and the Sentinel API into one?
We're working on that. I don't know whether I can give you a time frame for that, but yes, we are looking to create a cleaner API across both of those. Absolutely. I can't tell you anything in a public audience on that yet. So I was trying to figure out if I could. Was there a question there? Yeah.
The logic apps that we are running inside Sentinel for a lot of SOAR operations, what will be the future going forward?
Yeah, we're continuing to move forward with logic apps. Over some broader time horizon, we may consider other things, but at this point, we're firmly betting on logic apps. Good question. OK. Well, thank you, and have a great conference. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.